Hey, I'm Thomas Cox, and this is Restoring Trust. My guest today is Sharon Wylie. She is running for Clark County Auditor, I believe. I got that right?
Correct.
Super. And so I'm going to ask you my canonical list of questions that we ask candidates here on Restoring Trust. I should mention that the purpose of our podcast is to help restore public faith in institutions. And right now we're doing that one elected official at a time or one candidate at a time. And today's your day. So, again, thank you for coming on. And so, Sharon, I'll start off with what, in your view, is the purpose of government?
Purpose of government fundamentally is to do uh, collectively the things that individuals can't do by themselves, and to as social groups evolve to reflect the self-identified needs of those groups, assuming there's some kind of democratic process involved. Um, And when I talk about government, I'm talking about a government that is not a monarchy or an autocracy.
Got it. So, to provide what some people call public goods or to help people engage in collective action is
I guess I started thinking about this a while ago, but I sort of think of it as barn raising on a really massive scale.
Mhm. People getting together in large groups to do things that in smaller groups or solo, it's not possible or not effective. So the follow-on question is, what is the specific purpose of the office that you're running for?
The auditor's office, our state constitution and our federal constitution have certain things that are irrevocable without a real constitutional amendment. And counties are an arm of the state. And unless the voters make a different decision, there are the county commissioners or county council, and then several departments that start out elected unless the county makes them appointed instead of elected. And we are kind of a hybrid compared to most of the counties in the state. We have done a charter amendment to expand the number of county commissioners and make them a county council with a county manager. That is one big change. But we have left intact the other elected officials that are basically CEOs of a particular function, that are both elected and managerial. And that would be the clerk of the court, the assessor, the treasurer, and the auditor. And the auditor's office in particular, it has two major functions. One is to be the CFO of the county. Treasurer collects money and invests money and manages money. The CFO makes sure that standard procedures and best practices and checks and balances in the flow of money within the organization are intact, and that professionals manage those functions. The other part is to manage the elections, which are a state and local function by way of our federal constitution.
Gotcha. So acting as CFO, as you put it, meaning that you ensure that money handling is done according to correct processes, standards, and then the function of running the elections.
And there are certain administrative and internal auditing functions that go along with that, as well as occasionally county commissioners or council people will assign additional auditing or investigatory functions to the county auditor's office. But that's, individual to counties.
Okay. And so in Clark County, how is that?
Well, in Clark County, we actually have more people in the auditor function, where we have 44 funded positions and 39 are currently filled. The elections has 7 positions and 6 are filled. But during election processes, there are a large number of temporary and volunteer kinds of positions that come into play. So there, it's very intense during elections, but there's 2 very, very different functions.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And
So
go back
on
to
the
your
audit,
question. Did I fully answer that?
well, I think that you have to decide that. I think I'm following you, that the specific purpose of the office sounds to me like you're saying that the purpose of the auditor is to be that CFO who standardizes money handling functions. And I assume that's both spending and collections,
Right.
but the
And
treasurer
best
collects or
practices,
manages.
requirements and best practices, and county finance, any public sector organization is also audited by the state auditor on a regular basis. And, sometimes that's a burdensome process, and sometimes it gives you management information you didn't already have. So there are a number, and if there's federal dollars, there's federal audits that come into play that are external, in addition to what the internal auditor does.
Gotcha. Okay, so in terms of auditing function, the state does some things, the feds may do some things. And in terms of the Clark County auditor role specifically, it's auditing the internal operations of the other parts of the county.
Yes.
Gotcha. Got it. And when the office of the auditor is being done well, what does the public see and hear?
Question. The public interacts with the auditor on a number of different things: wedding licenses, non-location, uh, uh, auto licensing processes, um, uh, paying for registration of deeds. There's a whole lot of public-facing things. And one of the things that I did when I worked for the county as their government relations person is the auditor, the assessor, and the treasurer had a good idea together. And it was a bipartisan group, even though the offices were partisan at that point. They were building a new county building, which would be the public building that a lot of the county functions are in. And they wanted to design it so that they could have a one-stop on the second floor where everybody's frontline staff were cross-trained, so there was no wrong desk for the most normal procedures that the public comes in contact with. And that would reduce waiting time. It would mean that there was always people there to serve the public. And they found out that our state law had things so siloed that it would be illegal to do that. So one of my assignments to add to my long list of transportation and infrastructure and tax, all kinds of things, was to change the state law to make it legal to provide that better customer service through that collaboration. And the other counties were not in favor of that for the most part. The other counties that were still separately elected didn't like the idea. They weren't forced to do it, but they didn't like the idea of changing the law where they might have to work with the frontline employees of each other's operations, because each of these offices is the CFO of their operation, but they have no control over what their funding level is for staff. So that's the county council or commission does that. But I got the law changed so that they were allowed to do that. So they had better customer service
Right.
because they wanted to.
I love hearing that. I'm delighted that they wanted to do that. I'm delighted that you helped them do it. And I'm, I guess, bemused that other counties were resistant to removing legal blocks to allowing people to cooperate inside of the county to better serve the public.
I spent many, many years as a consultant unraveling things that look weird over time.
Yeah, that sounds like an example. Uh, so this topic is when the public, when the office of the auditor is doing done well, the public will see and hear certain things. You mentioned a lot of public-facing activities like wedding licenses, and of course this idea of one-stop shopping, reception. What about other aspects of, I don't know, the CFO role or the audits or, well, obviously elections? What are some of the things people see and hear when all of those things are each being done well?
Well, the auditor ends up having to comment on the financial impact of a lot of things. For instance, we have a charter review process going on right now, and the auditor and his top staff put together a presentation on some of the proposals that the charter review committee is coming up with, so that they could get a preview of what the real costs of those ideas were. You know, as a legislator and as a county representative in the past, I have learned that a lot of things that sound really good have either been done before and failed, or cost a lot more money than what they're worth. And so the county auditor, because of their reach within all aspects of the county, is in a position to extrapolate those costs and to provide data so that county commissioners or that charter review committee can make decisions better.
Right. So anyone with a public policy proposal, I assume above a certain size or something, would either ought to or maybe must come to the auditor or somebody for a fiscal impact statement. I'm not sure that's the right term.
Correct.
Gotcha. So let me drill in on that. Is there a particular process you guys follow? Is there a standard for that?
I think that the financial systems of all public agencies have lots of strings and checks and balances on them. And I know that when a city, a county, school district gets a really great audit, they usually publish it.
Sure.
When they have something that's discovered that they should change, they usually change it very quickly and make that public so that they don't get criticized for not doing it. I've heard by interviewing people that are connected with the auditor's office that sometimes there might be a complaint or an allegation that needs to be investigated. And in government, there's people that might be mistaken or accused government of something because that's how it looks to them and that's what they believe, has to be investigated. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that it's true, but it has to be checked out whenever there's any kind of allegation. And I know anecdotally that the auditor's office is involved in those kinds of internal checking it out. Somebody says something that's serious enough, you go and you find out if it's true or not. But there are a lot of there are a lot of processes connected with anything to do with money. There are a lot of laws and RCWs and administrative laws that guide how, from the state level, how things are done on the election side as well.
So there's how money is handled and spent and accounted for. There's a lot going on here in this answer.
I know.
Which is good. I mean, this is why we're asking the question. I'm going to back up. You mentioned doing investigations, and I assume that those are investigations primarily around money handling or money spending or financial.
It could be around toxic work environment.
Oh, really?
Conflict management, and it might be just the start. And those probably would not be as public unless they resulted in some action.
Yeah.
And I guess the other piece for the public is right now people talk a lot about the counting of votes and allegations of voter fraud and ballot manipulation and that sort of thing. And I'm very proud to be in Clark County because our auditor has responded very creatively and quickly to all of those accusations. And there There is nobody, anybody can come and watch behind a security fence, every vote being counted. All of the counting machines are not connected to the internet. They cannot be hacked. There is always a paper trail. And when there is a recount, that electronic machine that is not connected to the internet and the paper trail vote counting matches up incredibly well in our county. And it is observed by representatives of both parties, plus any member of the public that cares to see for themselves.
Got it. Okay, so I'm hearing a lot of transparency and care in the current auditor's function, that voting tabulation machines are not connected to the internet, therefore not hackable, that there is always a paper trail, that everything's observable by observers who can be delegates of either of the two major parties or anyone from the public who's interested.
And they have bipartisan observers watching the envelopes be opened. The envelopes are, I mean, it's all right out there in front of people.
Gotcha. I wanted to put to bed something that's still in my head on you mentioned investigations, and I thought it was just going to be financial stuff, but you mentioned conflicts and toxicity. How do you go from an allegation to an investigation? Does the auditor's office just decide, or does someone task you with that, or what's the chain that follows?
And I only know bits and pieces anecdotally.
Sure. Okay.
Because I know in an organization, and I've been a city administrator, and I've also been an HR manager. So depending on what it is, it could be if it's against somebody who is a manager, they will ask for somebody else to do the investigation. There's protocols and procedures to say how that happens, and how people's confidentiality and lack of retaliation, all of those things that people might be concerned about. But depending on what it is, there could be an attorney assigned from the prosecutor's office. There could be something, and I don't have a good example. I have, anecdotal.
It's okay. I don't. This wasn't intended to be a pop quiz on
I know,
minutia.
but there may be a request by investigators at another county to do the investigation, because people want to make sure everything is objective.
Right, and you can't investigate yourself, or you can't investigate your own office. There's a conflict of interest.
Correct.
Got it.
And with counties do everything, so it could be police. It could there could be so many different things.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure we get through as many of our questions as possible. So what do you see as the most important issues facing the Office of the Auditor in Clark County today?
I think we're heading into an unprecedented time in politics. And I personally believe that the election systems have been under pressure in every state in our country for several years now. So there's greater pressure to be transparent. There's greater pressure to protect, have the capacity to explain and reveal and be transparent, and to constantly do a self-check on, are we doing the best we can? Are we making the best use of our resources? Are we prepared for anything that might happen? And some of my consulting work with setting up comprehensive risk management systems in large government entities, like Multnomah County, for instance, and understanding where the risks are coming from and being able to transfer that risk, mitigate that risk, manage it somehow is really important. And one of the concerns that I have had, and that I'm hearing more and more people talk about, is how to protect our vote by mail system. And what do we do if anything happens that impacts that, the ability of that system to do what it's supposed to do. And one of the impacts could be our postal service and the way that we say when a ballot is in on time.
Yeah.
And the postal service has been under a great deal of pressure for about 30 years now. There have been organizations that it's a constitutional service, but there are forces and organizations and people that say we shouldn't have it. It should be privatized. So there's been pressure on our national postal service. How that plays out, we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared to communicate the best way that people can get their ballot in. We might need to be able to have more ballot boxes. We may have to ask other entities for additional locations. If we were first forced to go back to the polls, and I don't think that's going to happen this year, but there is talk about it, and so it bears some thought to figure out what would you do if that happened. Polling places traditionally were elementary schools. Because of school shootings, security systems would not allow the flow of the public in and out of an elementary school during a school day. So what are the options if that happens? I personally don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon, but we may have to help people make sure that their ballots are in on time. And what are all the things we might be able to do, and how do people find out about it?
Right. Got it. Any other important issues you see facing the auditor's office that you want to bring up?
Well, counties are structurally in between a rock and a hard place financially.
Mhm.
And remember, the people trying to manage these services that people interface with do not have any control over what's in their budget. And right now, the community pressure is to have more police per 1,000 people. But if you have more police, you have to have more prosecutors and judges, and the state has to pay for part of that. And counties sometimes fight for years to get that extra judge or that extra funding for the prosecutor's office. Plus, there's also a constitutional obligation to pay for indigent defense. So another cop requires a lot of expansion on the criminal justice system, and the behind the scenes work to make the treasurer's operation, the assessor's operation, and the auditor's operation, and the clerks of the judges function well is not as visibly important to the public. And so there's always tension. Plus, counties are set up to be rural. They're not set up to be urban. And big county, we're one of the 5 big counties in our state. And we have a lot of levels of human services that people don't want to do away with. Drug and alcohol treatment, mental health treatment, public health. All of those things have to be funded. And counties have fewer kinds of taxing authority, and the kind they have is problematic for somebody aging in place, property tax. So there's always tension between how you fund these services for counties. Cities have many more options for providing money to pay for all the things that people want if they're in a urban area, but counties do not. And so there's always a push-pull between counties and the state. And as a state legislator, I was sort of the county voice when budgets were talked about, of saying, we need revenue sharing. We need to pay for that. We're making counties do this. We should help pay for it. So
Yes, it
there was
should
an
be an unfunded
interaction there.
mandate.
And
The
that's a
state
longer
thinks the
answer
county
than
should.
more, and I apologize.
No, it's thorough. I mean, if the state says the county should do X, but the state doesn't pay for X, well, someone's got to pay for it because it doesn't happen on its own. And as you point out, counties don't have as many revenue sources or options as cities may have,
Correct.
and which there's got to be incredible pressure then for efficiency and effectiveness. I want to go back up to the specific purpose of the office. is there any overlap between the drive for efficiency that you mentioned, just that there's these pressures exist, and the role of the auditor in either driving or cheerleading or somehow helping create efficiencies in other departments beyond its own?
Well, I think it comes down to what you're talking about with this blog or this
This podcast.
podcast.
Yeah.
Trust. I think that our current auditor is very well trusted by government leaders of both parties and government leaders that are nonpartisan. And one of the things that I feel that I bring to the office is that people have trusted me for a lot of years, and people of both parties have trusted me. And I have worked in a very nonpartisan way. When I was the county lobbyist, um, only 3 out of the 15 legislators I worked regularly with were Democrats, for instance. And I had to have good relationships with everybody. And my background in management and human resources um, does provide another internal voice for how you make decisions and extrapolating on how they're going to affect employees, turnover, um, how you might want to engage the public so that there are no surprises and so there's mutual understanding. And I have been a very accessible public official as long as I've been one. I'm somebody that meets and is open, and I always offer my opinion, and oftentimes that opinion is accepted.
Gotcha. I notice I'm only halfway through my list of questions, and we've eaten up a lot. I can keep going because I've got the time, but I want to respect yours. Are you able to continue?
I can.
Oh, super. Okay. So I mentioned the most important issues. You mentioned financial pressure, and earlier, of course, we talked about elections and so forth. Um, are there areas where you perceive or are concerned about institutional decay in this office, that is the auditor, or in any of the systems around it?
Um, I know that things are public and known about. Our current auditor has been very proactive. Cameras and uh, uh, smoke suppression devices, smoke identification devices within ballot boxes are a recent example. Um, I wouldn't venture to say until I take a good look, and a good look that can't be done from the outside.
Okay, got it. So no externally obvious signs that you're aware of inside the auditor's office. Got it. And then what role do you see the office of the auditor playing in halting or reversing institutional decay in any part of the county government?
I have found as an elected official, um, the best way to um, maintain and gain trust, okay, is by personal contact and transparency, um, answering every question honestly, explaining changes in opinion, changes in circumstances that people need to know about, uh, and being able to give concrete examples. Um, a lot of when you're an when you're a manager, trust is built over time, and part of a job of a manager is um, to be able to be flexible enough to meet the moment and the person, to be able to manage a lot of different kinds of people, not just one kind of person. Um, and that takes experience. That you know that that takes experience. Um, I think that one of the things I'm proud of is that the feedback I get from people is that you actually came and talked to me. I trust you. You'll always be honest. And, frankly, I've done this long enough. I have very few filters on my mouth. And I've been intimately involved in a lot of different organizational problems. So I, I like engaging people. And that's part of who I am.
Got it. And so, um, I mean, you say that your experience in managing and in HR and so on has taught you the importance of meeting the moment, meeting the person, managing different people in unique ways based on who they each are. That for the auditor in general to be able to, gain trust through being personally accessible, personal contact, transparency, explaining changes, explaining circumstances, explaining decisions, giving concrete examples, and that you're proud of your history of engaging people in exactly that fashion. Okay, super. Anything else on the role of the auditor in reversing institutional decay? It's okay if there's not. Just wanted to check. I'm about to move on.
I think people don't understand what the auditor does,
I guess.
and they don't understand the difference between the treasurer and the auditor. Um, and they don't know how many safeguards there are to protect their vote.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that you don't just communicate once, whether it's how to why a kid should stop smoking. Education has to be ongoing, and people aren't paying attention sometimes until they need to know. So the information has to be out there in a variety of ways.
Sort of continually pushing the data out so that when people are ready for it, it's available.
Exactly.
Got it. Let's see. What are some specific plans you have for your term in office, assuming you're elected?
I think that gearing up for what might be a real roller coaster of a couple of election cycles is going really important. I've been involved in politics for a really long time since I was a student. And this is a time like no other. Nobody alive went through another pandemic than the one we just had. Nobody alive has been exposed to so much negative information. Everything is augmented by social media right now. And the media, the news has always been focused on the negative. My theory is that all of the news and social media and the algorithms and going back further before the internet is all focused on and designed to appeal to the part of your brain that can't help but slow down at a traffic accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what grabs our attention. And we haven't adapted on how to handle that, really.
Got it. And any other specific plans or anything on how you chose the priorities you intend to pursue?
I think making sure that the office is institutionally and publicly strong enough to not be dependent on one person in order to function properly. And that means transparently, accurately, and to do the job and be totally fair to all interest groups and parties. And doing an evaluation over some time on how strong that institution is and how it's maintained, how it maintains its culture going forward. I think an institution that's important shouldn't be dependent on one person.
Yeah. And so if the goal is to make sure that the auditor's office is not dependent on any one person, what actions does that imply then for you to take in your term?
There's a number of things. One might be to create mobility paths for people that are there, to do succession planning for people that are planning their retirement. It might be to have a external advisory role that would go beyond one leader's tenure. It might be to have more internships and learning experiences for people on a career path that intersects with the skill sets that are going to be needed in the future.
Got it. Right. So it sounds like you would want the highly skilled and experienced people who may be retiring to still have some sort of an advisory role where I know it, one of my clients, they'll have someone retire and they'll bring them back on like 0.2 FTE, like a day a week for a couple of months or even a couple of years in some cases, just so that they're available to answer questions and help people with systems and so on.
Yeah, and sure, and if distrust and suspicion, um, or trying to survive against the pressures to do other things with the county resources, maybe a citizen advisory group that would be put together in collaboration with the county council, for looking at right sizing, looking at resources that are needed. I know that in accounting alone, if it weren't for technology, we'd need hundreds of thousands more employees doing those operations.
Right.
But looking at making sure that the right technology is in place to keep the staffing, keep the operation um, accurate at the best possible price.
Right. So appropriate use of technology, appropriate use of modern methods and systems, so forth.
Exactly.
Citizen advisory group sounds awfully interesting. You mentioned transparency. I'm reminded of, I'm going to float some terrible ideas for you. We're past the end of the fixed question, so I get to be an idiot now. A couple different times I've been through citizens police academies, and Beaverton, Oregon has one where you come in like one day, one evening a month for several months, and you just learn about how the police do their thing. And that's interesting because the police are so interesting. I don't know that anyone would sign up for um, an auditor academy necessarily, although I might. Maybe I'd be the only one, but maybe there's something for you county-wide there to get people in the door. And the other thought that's come to my mind many times, and I almost never want to say this to anybody in an elections role because I fear their reaction, is to come up with some red team groups who could attempt to break the ballot system and then publish what they did and say, here's how we tried to mess your systems up, and to see how well the countermeasures stood up and what else could be done. I know like the U.S. Army does that all the time with red teams and blue teams. Lord knows how that would be misunderstood or misrepresented by, unkind or untrusting people, but maybe those are the very people who should be recruited onto the group. You don't have to respond to that.
Well,
I
yeah,
wanted
I would
to
have a lot. You did trigger something
Mm.
that is a concern of auditors all over the state, and they tried
Sure.
to do a bill. I'm hoping to keep working on that. You've
Mm.
seen the TV commercials about deed theft,
Oh, deed theft.
insurance to close the door after the horse is gone. If somebody steals your house because of going, and a lot of the law doesn't require thorough identification when you go in and change a deed. And so it is a growing problem nationally. And the auditors were looking at, is there a way to do this that is preventative? And the title companies were against it. And my understanding is that partly because it would slow down the closing, and there are a lot of interests that are in a hurry to make sure nothing delays the closing of a sale.
Right.
And so I'm very interested in solving the problem with other people
Sure.
on how do you produce some prevention that doesn't violate people's confidentiality, that doesn't slow down a process that people are very invested in making happen exactly on schedule. Because I think it's a real problem, and paying money to an insurance company to fix it after it's already happened is not my idea of good government.
Right. Oh, okay. That brings up a related topic. I had another auditor candidate on. I didn't ask that person, but I'll ask you. Voter ID requirements. Um, I I don't know where we're at as a state with that. And increasing the ID requirements on deed changes would bring up some of the same concerns that I've heard you just
Exactly.
about. It's like, well, what if I don't have photo ID? And I'm like, how can you get through life without photo ID? So I'm just wondering where you're at with that.
Well, in multiple kinds of states with different levels of sophistication in their systems, their government systems. There have been a lot of studies that have shown that the amount of attempt, even by accident, to vote when you're not supposed to is so infinitesimal. It's just, not a problem. The privacy of data is a concern, and I've worked on lots of legislation and lots of ideas on data privacy. So that's another awareness that I bring to the table. But I think that these proposals sound good. So anything that people are going to be attracted to should be explored and explained. If you don't do it, say why. Say why it's not a good idea. But no, I think that for some things, people are willing to show their data if it protects their house. Sure. and their biggest investment they'll ever make.
Right.
Whether somebody can vote, a busy mom who changed her name when she got married and who has busy, toddlers, who has to find their birth certificate, make sure it's not a copy, and all of the things that are being proposed don't feel legit to me. They feel like those are unnecessary barriers. And in our system, if somebody's handwriting changed because they get arthritis in their hand, if their signature changes, they get a call saying the signature you have doesn't match the one that we just got. Is this your ballot? And I know lots of people who've gotten that phone call. That's our system. And, so that I think that most of what the legislature does every year that's bipartisan, that passes, is fixing unintended consequences of a prior legislative session and somebody's good idea.
We could have a whole episode, if
Yes,
not
we
several,
could.
on the unintended consequences of legislation. But I suspect that would be not the right thing to bring up right now, since we've gotten through all of our questions and I've taken you.
And I do have to
14,
jump into a
20 minutes
transportation meeting.
past our agreed time. Thank you very much, Sharon Wylie, candidate for auditor in Clark County, Washington, here in 2026. Recording this in June, and your election, your primary is in August.
That's right. August 5th.
So super. And is there anything I didn't ask you that you feel it's important for you to say?
No, I think these are legit questions, and there isn't anything off the table in this race.
And
democracy is worth defending.
Got it. And is it okay if I share the Gmail address I used for you in reaching out to you? Can I include that in the description of the video so if folks want to reach out to you, or is there a better way?
Which one do you use? I've got 3. Sharon Wylie for auditor with the number 4 is the one I prefer.
Got it. I'll make sure to use that. And that's at Gmail?
At gmail.com, correct.
Sharon Wylie for auditor at gmail.com. We'll make sure that's in the description of the video so folks want to reach you.
Absolutely.
Get you there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Best of luck in the election.
Thank you.
Take care.